Hello, thanks for tuning in today to what I hope is one of the most valuable and educational video trainings that you've ever seen on the APR. As you can tell from the slideshow presentation here, today we're going to talk about annual percentage rate. And hopefully this guide will help you better understand what, in my opinion, is one of the most misunderstood terms across the mortgage industry. Annual percentage rate. Now, I am with Low VA Rates. We are VA mortgage experts. However, today's training will not be geared towards VA loans specifically. We also do FHA, conventional, USDA, jumbo, you name it, we can do the loan, and the APR is something that is identical as far as how it is calculated and why it should be used across all loan platforms. So whether you're a veteran or not, we certainly hope that you find this video highly valuable. Let's get into it. Annual percentage rate. Most of us have probably felt or currently feel a lot like this guy here. Now, I find it interesting that this is a banker, most likely, somebody like myself that works in the mortgage arena or the mortgage industry. And I'll tell you, I've managed hundreds of loan officers over my years, processors, underwriters, you name it. And even amongst industry professionals, at least before they go through our trainings, it is very difficult for them to effectively communicate what an annual percentage rate is or why we have it and how we should use it. So we're going to put you through that same sort of explanation today and hope you find this training to be very aha inspiring. You know, one of those moments where you say, aha, that's why. Well, that's what sort of experience we hope to give you today. First of all, let's define APR, or annual percentage rate. Your APR is an annual rate that is charged to you for borrowing money from someone, in this case specifically a mortgage company. Now, the APR is expressed as a single percentage. So the point in doing that is to make it very simple. We all understand percentage rates. They're simple to look at. 100% on a test at school, that's great. A 75% isn't as great. So we should understand to a certain extent percentage rates. And the APR is a way to express the annual rate that you're being charged for borrowing money from someone and expressing it as a single numerical percentage. Now, the APR also represents the actual yearly costs of borrowing money over the term of the loan. So what that means is it takes into consideration closing costs. It takes into consideration the term of the loan. Now, what's the term of the loan? It could be 30 years, 25 years, 15 years. So the term, or the time for which you're asking the bank to lend you money, also affects the APR calculation. Probably the most important thing to understand, and we're going to talk about this as we go forward in today's slideshow, and this will not be a long video, so please keep watching, is where you have fees and additional costs associated with your mortgage, that's what really has the biggest impact on your APR. Okay, we're going to get to that. To understand the APR and why we have it, you must also understand the difference between the note rate, or what's more commonly referred to as the interest rate, and the APR. If you've ever seen billboards, at least compliant billboards or compliant solicitations that you might get in the mail, you'll see this interest rate advertised. Hey, today we can offer you, for example, a 3.25% 30-year fixed rate. And then right next to it, you'll see 3.465 APR. And that is because as a mortgage lender or as a compliant, institution, you can't just advertise a rate without telling the borrower what the APR is. The borrower would be you, the prospective, buyer or borrower, someone that's going to be borrowing money. And you'll see why here in just a moment. They're different amounts. The APR is a much broader measure of what it's going to cost, okay? What it's going to cost you to get this mortgage, because it's going to take into consideration the interest rate. Like I said, today we're offering a 3.25% 30-year fixed. We're also offering a 2.75 30-year fixed rate. Both of them have different APRs, and both of them have an APR which is higher than the actual interest rate. And why is that? Because they both have closing costs or fees associated with them. Okay, so here's where we're really going to get into the nitty gritty, and you're going to have that light bulb aha moment. Trying to compare an apple to an orange is not an effective way of doing things. And so there are certain regulatory bodies in this country, people that are trying to protect the consumer, and they realize that when you're shopping for a mortgage, it can be tricky. Okay, it's like trying to figure out what's better, an apple or an orange. And that's difficult to do. So what the APR does is it helps you determine to an extent, and that's the catchphrase here. To an extent, the APR is supposed to help you determine which is better. Do you want a 4.25% fixed rate with absolutely no closing costs? Or do you want a 4% fixed rate with $7,500 in closing costs? Well, you may say, I don't know. Well, the APR can help. It's not going to take all of your responsibility away, but it can help you better shop for the least expensive loan. Okay, but what I'm going to tell you is very rarely are most consumers solely interested in just the cheapest or least expensive loan. There's other variables that you have to look at. But as far as the APR is concerned, let's just say you're looking at a bunch of similar loans. So you go to 3 banks. You go to low VA rates, you go to high VA rates, and you go to okay VA rates. And all of us are charging you, or offering you, I should say, a 4% rate. One of us charges $7,500, one of us charges $3,500, and one of us charges only $500. Well, the bank charging the 4% 30-year fixed with a $500 in total closing costs, that bank will have the lowest APR. So once you determine what it is that you want, at that point it makes sense to look at the APR to compare the cost of similar loans. Okay, but as I suggested, people are not always interested in simply getting the lowest APR or the cheapest loan. You have to figure out what's most important to you. I know here at Low VA Rates, the vast majority of the people that we talk to want the absolute lowest payment they can get. They are then focused primarily on the interest rate. So, for example, I told you that I can give you a 2.75% 30-year fixed rate today with an APR of, right around 3.99%. I'm sorry, not 3.99%, 2.99%. Okay? There's going to be substantial closing costs, discount points, fees for you to buy down to that 2.75% rate today. Or you could take a 3.25% 30-year fixed rate from us with way less closing costs, almost no closing costs at all. The 3.25% rate, though it's going to have a lot less closing costs, isn't going to necessarily give you the lowest payment. So first, figure out what's most important to you. If you really want the least expensive loan, then you can compare APRs. If you want a low payment and you want low costs, then again, go find the lowest interest rate that banks or lenders or mortgage companies are willing to offer you, along with their associated costs, and just say, hey, I want a 2.75 30-year fixed rate, and I want low VA rates, high VA rates, and okay VA rates to all tell me what their APRs are with the 2.75, and you would simply go with the lowest of the 3 APRs, assuming all other things were equal, like customer service, knowledge, and friendliness, and that would be your best loan. So that's what these federal agencies, these oversight committees, if you will, that is why they have produced an APR. But again, it doesn't really take all of your shopping variables and make them to where you just look at one thing and that's it. What I'm going to propose today, in my mind, is more important than the APR, is something in the industry referred to as a recoup time, or how long it's going to take you to recover or recoup your closing costs. And that all has to do with your time horizon. So remember, I told you at the very beginning, APR looks at the term of the loans. It spreads all of those closing costs out. So if you're going to be charged $10,000 in closing costs, your APR spreads those $10,000 out over 30 years. But the value of that APR, meaning how valuable it is to you when shopping, is not that optimal if you're not going to be in your loan for the next 30 years. If you plan on moving or refinancing or selling your home in the next 4 or 5 years, which most of us do, then the question is the APR really that valuable to you? I always ask this question. Do you know anyone that bought a home, borrowed money, got a mortgage, and made 360 payments? So that was one payment a month for the next 30 years until they paid their mortgage down to zero. And I've only ever been told one time in 15 years of doing this, yes. And I question whether or not that person really knew somebody or they were just trying to catch me off guard. But it just doesn't happen, okay? Normally what happens is people sell their home, they refinance, or they move. Let's just summarize it, okay? I hope you're still with me. But the APR, this annual percentage rate, prior to October of 2015, so just a few months back, it was in your face from the very beginning. It was on page 1 in big black bold letters of something called a truth in lending statement. Okay, and that was the industry and the regulatory bodies were giving tons of emphasis to putting the APR right in front of consumers. This is my opinion. This is not fact. This is my opinion. But I believe the APR and the push of trying to get people to see the APR caused more problems than it actually did good. I can tell you hundreds of real life stories of people sitting at the closing table with a title company and starting to question after their loan was all done. They're looking at the APR and they're saying, wait a second, you told me I was getting a 3.0% 30-year fixed rate. This APR is telling me I'm at 3.15. I don't want to do the loan. I feel like I've been swindled. And it would take, presentations like this to get people to understand, no, you're still getting a 3.0 fixed note rate or interest rate. Let me explain to you what the APR is. So the agencies that require this disclosure of an APR, there's now a 5-page document known as a closing disclosure, which has replaced the truth in lending that you would normally see at closing. And the APR is in a smaller font, and it is all the way at the very last page. This is where I'm, again, going back to my opinion. I feel the agencies have realized that APR is still important, but it is not as important when it comes to shopping for the best loan as perhaps it once was. Again, that's my opinion. Another thing I think agencies have realized, consumer habits in this country have changed. Where years ago, our parents, our grandparents, they likely did buy a home. They paid on it for many, many years, perhaps all 30 years, and over time, they just paid it off. And people didn't move. I mean, how many of us can say, yeah, my parents are still living in the same house I was born in, or my parents lived in the same house their parents were lived in? But look at the current generation of homeowners. That doesn't happen anymore. We certainly don't stay in the same mortgage. This happens much more often than it used to because people have gotten smarter and they've realized that, there's ways to access the equity of your home, lower your rate when the Fed cuts rates. And so the APR, for those reasons, I personally, my opinion is that the APR is not as important as it perhaps once was. Now, I do agree, and this is fact and opinion, that the APR is helpful in comparing different competing loan offers. We have people all the time that are looking to do business with the low VA rates, and they bring us competing offers, and we explain to them that we can give you that exact same note rate. You're getting a 3.25 today from competitor A. We'll give you a 3.25% rate also, but we will also give you less closing costs. Our APR will be lower, and we will show them that in different forms of documentation and help educate them on, now you're getting the exact same rate at company A and B, but the one with the lower APR, assuming you trust both companies, is the one that's less expensive for you and you should go with. Finally, what I challenge all of you prospective home buyers that are researching right now, or current homeowners that are researching a refinance. Determine the most important thing to you. Are you trying to get the lowest absolute payment? Then the APR is not that important. Find the company that's willing to give you the absolute lowest interest rate. That's going to give you the lowest payment most of the time. Do you know that you want a low payment, but you're also going to be selling your house in 3 years? Or you're going to be refinancing to send your kids to college and pulling out some equity? Then you may not want to roll $10,000 in fees into your loan, because it's going to take you a while to recoup that. Or at least focus with your loan officer on determining and calculating your recoup time and make some decisions based on that. That's about it today. I hope what was once a very complex topic for you is now less complex. I invite you to look at our frequently asked questions at lowvarates.com. We have some other video tutorials, or simply give us a call and let us help you with your next loan, whether that be a purchase or refinance. We specifically invite veterans and military families to give us a call, but all of you are important to us, and we can help you with whatever loan needs you have. Thanks again for watching, and we hope to hear from you soon.